Okay, so welcome. It's so great to see everybody after our long Tishrei break. And look forward to rebooting and rejuvenating as we go back into Shara Yichud. This is our second round, so this is class 6 of the second round.
Wow.
Yeah. And what we're going to do today is, because it's been such a long break, we're going to do some review, and we're going to do active review. And then we'll move on to the next paragraph, which is talking about Omek, which is the depth. So here we go. Whoever can put on their cameras, please do so. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I realize that we've been through a long break. And so just to get our heads back into the space, here's what I want us to do, is we're going to do a summary of everything that we've done until now. So I put this document on the WhatsApp group, or you can just have a look at it here. This is just a summary. Paragraph rule 1, take out a piece of paper, try and remember, what do you remember about the introduction? Then going to paragraph 2, Chochmah and Bina, and then paragraph 3, Das. If you want something more detailed, here I'm going to leave this up, which is, here we go, the introduction, but then say paragraph 2, Chochmah and Bina, you do a definition, the 2 examples, and then in Das, the definition and the example and Chosh. Does any of this sound familiar?
Yeah.
Good. So I'm going to stop the recording actually. And we'll give you about 10 minutes just to sit and write on your own. You can either look up in the summaries, or you can look up in the text, and just to remind yourself of, what it is that we've learned up till now. You can do it very short, or you can do it a little bit longer. And then we'll come back and we'll go over it. Mila, do you want to pause the recording so that we'll take 10 minutes to do this?
I'm sorry. And if you have any questions, please, you could ask in the chat while you're doing this exercise.
Okay. So even if you haven't finished doing it, let's go over it. When I'm sharing a document, I can't see what's in the chat for some reason, so I'm not sharing right now. But what I want you to do is to write in the chat what you wanted to say about the introduction. Like, what is your one line, 2 line? What is the introduction, the first paragraph? So let's go, everybody writing. We're going to share.
The first paragraph is about knowing that there is a primary cause that created everything, and primary, there is nothing before that. And we have 2 mitzvot. First mitzvah then is to know that God, and that God is one. And the 7th mitzvah is no. Okay, we have 2 mitzvot about in the introduction. The first is knowing that there is a primary cause, and the seventh mitzvah is to know that it is a positive mitzvah to know that God is one.
Cody,
Oh.
I'm giving you a pass here. You're correct. What I'm asking people to do is write it in the chat so that we see what everybody. No, it's okay.
Okay.
So we see not just what one person, but what everybody, each person. And I also want to see that people are doing it. So Yoni wrote something. I wanted to see other people writing in the chat. This is how we're going to try and communicate as a group more in the chat. So Yoni says that for her, the introduction is about God is one, the mitzvah to unify him, he brings everything into being. Shosh says Hashem brings everything into existence. He's the foundation of foundations. Hashem is one, and it's a positive mitzvah to know this. The Shema. Okay, good. Anybody else? Nechama? Just write what you wrote. Presumably, I'm hoping that everybody was doing the exercise. So all you need to do is do whatever you wrote, write it into the chat. Miriam, to know there's a primal God bringing all existence into existence, knowing this is a positive mitzvah. Okay. All right, let's move on to paragraph 2, Chochmah and Bina. We really just, the idea is to just bring our minds back to what we've been learning. So
okay, I'm sorry, I've been having technical problems, but I just got to the chat. So
okay, great.
Yeah, it's a kind of to stimulate our brain to come from the whole Tishrei and everything else, all the cooking and cleaning and kids, work, to right here, right now, to whatever else we're learning.
Okay, so just going on to, so then we had to understand, the one thing that's missing from everybody's description is the idea of hisbonenus. So that's an important point here, that Shema is connected to hearing, which is connected to hisbonenus, because he uses that as a jumping off point to say, okay, what is hisbonenus? And then the whole chapter is about what is hisbonenus. So then to understand hisbonenus, we first need to understand the 3 parts of the brain, Chochmah, Bina, and Das. So paragraph 2 was about Chochmah and Bina. So just very bekitzur, write a line, write a few words. Okay. What is Chochmah? What is Bina? Anything that you wrote in these last 10 minutes, just to share it, just so that we see that we're all, on the same page here. Okay, Giti says, Giti Stolik, paragraph 2, concept in pictures above letters. Can you be a little bit more detailed? Yoni, Chochmah, the spark of inspiration without the details of why. For example, experiencing a beautiful home. Okay, we're getting a bit closer. It is the essence of the concept. Okay, Chochmah is Haskalat Etzem Ha'inyan, the essence of the concept. The Haskala of the essence. Yoni, Bina, expanding the details so you can understand why it's beautiful. Good. Okay, YK Yehudis. Chochmah is Haskalat Etzem Ha'inyan Bilti Bechinat Hitlapshut Be'otiot Klal. Okay, good, in Hebrew. Cody, Chochmah is the intellectual perception of the essence without letters. Means of sharing is Bina, which is the intellectual perception of the matter in a revealed way, with letters allowing us to communicate and share it. Okay, very good. Nachama, Chochmah is the essence of the matter without details and letters. Bina encloses the essence with letters and details, enabling one to understand and visualize the reality of the matter. Okay, good. Everybody's getting it. Miriam, the seichel divided into three categories, Chochmah, Bina, and Das. Chochmah is the intellectual perception of the essence without manifesting in letters, and Bina is the revealed explanation able to be articulated. Good. Yudas, Bina is Hitlapshut Haskalat Etzem Ha'inyan. Don't understand. Baran Niglet Bebechinas Otiot. Okay, good.
It's Hasbara. Yeah, the hay was missing. Yeah, Hasbara. Niglis. Yeah, the explanation, revealed explanation, but penis.
Okay. Thank you. And Shosh Chochmah is the intellectual perception of the matter. Bina is the intellectual perception, but with letters. Good. Basi, Chochmah is a flash of insight. It answers the question what, while Bina answers the question of how or why. Chochmah is the essence of a concept without letters or words, and Bina is the intellectual perception of the essence with revealed explanations and letters. Okay, very good. Let's move on to Das. Everybody pretty much got that. Let's get some definitions of Das and a couple insights, and then we're moving on.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So now our neurons are a little bit warmed up.
Yuti says that Das is the connection to both, meaning to both to Chochmah and to Bina. Exactly. So anybody want to talk about the students, the two students, or Chosh? What came up for you, or maybe you didn't get there. Okay. All right, let's see some writing. Das is the mental connection between Chochmah and Bina. So yes, that is an aspect. There is Das between Chochmah and Bina. There's also Das in other places. So the main thing is that Das is his kashrus, it's connection. Yoni, Das is the connection between the two, Chochmah and Bina, rooted in Chosh. One student has an interest, another doesn't. Push is a sense or talent for something that drives one to have Das in something. Okay. Das is the bond between Chochmah and Bina, desiring to delve into the essence of the matter. Okay, let's see, let's go back. Mila, do you want to read the Hebrew? What is this one? Giving us the Hebrew there.
Yeah, das kishur atzum v'kibbutz sechel u'machshavto. Right, the das is the connection, the awesome connection, and the concentration of the mind and the thought. B'chol pratim shel ra'ayon echad bilvad, in all its details, for one idea at a time. V'lo chashav al mashu acher. And he doesn't think about anything else. And he also forgets about himself. Very nice.
Very good. So Cody says that das is the integration of the knowledge, bringing it down to reality, to the self connection. Shosh says that das is the connection to both, meaning Chochmah Bina, and the root of das is one's interest or proclivity to something. The more interest or ratzon, chosh, the more das, and the more he can dwell on it. Nechama das, it's neither choch nor bina, but the bonding of two becoming greater than the sum of its parts with a deeper dimension. Okay, so you know what? Let me just. We'll spend another few minutes here. What I can do is. I can share my answers. Mainly people are really understanding it. There's just a couple of small details here that I think, especially with
know what his number is, Yisro? Could you give me his? Could you give me his number? I'm so sorry. Could you give me his number? The one I have is disconnected.
All right. So let me just show you here. Okay. I'm just going to read through this quickly. This is what I took some time to do this myself, since I was asking you to do it. Paragraph 1, introduction. It's mitzvah to know Hashem and to know that he is one. In other words, that there's nothing but Hashem. This mitzvah is done by saying Shema Yisrael. Shema here suggests understanding or havana, which points to the process of hisbonenus. But what is hisbonenus? So most people were talking there about the mitzvah, which is great. The part that was missing is the connection to hisbonenus. Okay, so now this whole chapter is going to be about hisbonenus. We have to understand Chochmah and Bina and Das. So Chochmah is, these were the definitions. Chochmah is haskalat etzem ha'inyan without being enclosed in letters, and Bina encloses the haskalat etzem ha'inyan in explanations on the level of letters. The example, you can see I just left haskalat etzem ha'inyan because it's hard to translate. The example in the world of Asir was, I see a beautiful house and try to describe it to somebody. The first glance of Chochmah doesn't allow me to share the experience. When I examine the details, Bina, I understand the reason for the beauty, and I can share my experience in words. The example in Sechel of Midot was Shatik Rav. The Rav saw the Psak Din on the level of Chochmah, above letters, and was not able to argue against those who questioned his Psak. Later, Nechama bar Nachmani understood the psak on the level of Bina and explained the reason behind the psak din. So that should just remind us. Going into Das, so as many of you are saying, Das is not the haskala or insight of Chochmah or the Havana understanding of Bina. It is the hiskashrus connection between them. It was the example of the two students of equal intellectual ability. One student connects himself to the topic and is able to spend a lot of time on it, is not distracted by other thoughts and even forgets about himself. the other student is not connected to the topic and is unable to spend much time on it and thinks of other things. Then the root of das, here's where the root of das is a little bit more confusing. And the answers that people gave were not as clear. I understand that because chush is not so easy. So the definition, chush is the connection the person has to his ratzon at the time of his desire. The stronger the person's chush, the stronger will be the person's connection or das to the subject matter. And the example that was given is a person who has a natural affinity for kindness in the essence of his soul. Okay, good. So now that we've warmed up a little bit, do you feel your neurons a little bit warmer? Okay, so now what we're going to do is, in order to go on to the next topic, which is the topic of Omek, we're going to actually, Mila came up with this idea. And then I told her that actually it's something they do at Google, no, at Amazon. When they have a meeting, there's somebody is designated to write up a 6-page memo, which is going to be the subject matter that they're going to discuss during that meeting. Now they send out that memo, but they know that people are busy and not everybody will necessarily have read the memo. Or if they did read it, they haven't read it in enough detail. So they come into the meeting, and the first half hour of the meeting, everyone sits in silence and reads the memo. And then they have the meeting based on that memo. So instead of asking you to do a worksheet after learning the paragraph, we're going to go into breakout rooms now of just 2 people. So it gives you both the opportunity to really talk. And what we'd like you to do is to do the worksheet on the paragraph. Because in order for us in the second round of going through this, we really need to go a little bit deeper, which means that it's important that as we're going through the class, that you already know the material. So, so the idea is that in the next 10 minutes, you're going to basically review the paragraph 4 on the Omek. Maybe you've read it before, which we asked you to do, or if not, now is the time to go through it and remember. I posted the worksheet on the WhatsApp group, and I guess I should post it here. I need to post it here in the chat. Let me do that. Where's the chat? So it's a very simple worksheet. And then afterwards, we're going to come back and we're going to study it. But it basically means that you have really warmed up your mind and you're a vessel to receive, to go deeper. Okay, Mila.
Can I?
Oh, sorry, Nechama, yes. Nechama?
Yeah, you wanted to ask something?
Okay,
I think
I'm
you're
sorry.
muted. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so on page 20, in that paragraph 4, what was it, Omek? I'm sorry. Yeah, there's most of the page is a footnote, and it's very, very involved, and it looks like it's very informative. Should we get into that, or just sort of
No.
treat it as a footnote?
Yeah, no, not at all. You have 10 minutes. We just want you to know the basic material, to just remember what it is that's in the pshat
Okay.
of the paragraph. You don't have time to go into anything else. really you should be able, the idea was that, you know, before the class, you read the paragraph so that now you can just answer the questions.
And just to clarify, the paragraph in the English version is the whole section 4?
You know, it's just about Omek. Hold on a moment, I don't know. I guess I should say from page what to what.
Section 3, page 18.
Yeah, I put, okay, what are the pages?
Okay, Omek actually begins in section 3.
What page is it in the Hebrew also? Tell us.
It's page 18 in the English, and you should figure it, you'd be able to figure out where it ends. And in the Hebrew, it's kufnon.
Let me check if I have the right page.
It's
Wait,
the-
it doesn't start before. Oh, no. Okay, 1 second.
no, it begins
But only I don't remember that you actually did the paragraph before. Are we skipping that, or you already did it?
We did it. It was about das and chush.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Mila, you're going to put people into twos and
Yes, we have 11 people in groups, and one group will be with 3 people. So it's going to assign automatically.
the worksheet for you to answer questions is on the WhatsApp and also in the chat. So you can download it.
Mhm. Okay, the groups are ready. Good luck. Any questions, you could always, you know, swap to the main group and then go back to your own.
Oh, yeah, you could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, recording, yes.
Okay.
It's a pity that the recording missed with what you shared now. You should add it, Mila.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a pity.
Okay, so I'll share it again. So the group came back with a thing about Sfatav not mark, right? That the Makabel is salivating bitterness. And like, where are we getting that? Like that bitterness. And Shoshana shared that our dear Shir Malka, was her main thing, is like, if a student is really not salivating that bitterness, he's not a student. And it's so interesting because I'm hosting a family, and one of the kids came to me and after the Sudas on Shabbos, and he was like, well, how am I going to bless Hashem? Well, he's a Hebrew speaker, so I didn't understand. Ech ani evarech Hashem. So I didn't understand. So what's the story? So just tevarech, you know, where's the issue here? He's like, I was like, what's the story? And he's like, well, you know, it's hard for me to read, he's telling me. So how am I going to read? So how did you read before? I mean, you're 11, you know. So he said, my father used to help me. So then it invoked in me a great desire to give it to him. Yeah, for sure, I'll read it with you. Why not? And when we see a student that really wants to learn, it's a pleasure to teach. It's actually not only invokes a ratzon, there's a pleasure there. It's a pleasure from a shpia to teach somebody who is like chalashing and like, I want to know. Yeah, for sure. Who doesn't want to give? Especially if it's, you know, we mastered that.
But Mila, look how you framed the bitterness. Like, I'm walking away here with bitter lips. I'm thinking of Mara and who knows what bitter food. Meanwhile, you showed bitterness is a yearning, a deep yearning that's so deep that it distresses.
Yes, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a depression. By the way, there's a big difference between merirus and depression. Merirus is not a depression. Merirus is an active state of understanding that I'm lacking something and I really want to fill that lack. It's a desperation. It's not a depression. Depression is like when I don't feel anything. So when people feel merirus, they have to be very happy because at least they're feeling something. When people don't feel anything, they numb. That's what depression is. And that's very bitter state. I think it's more bitter than feeling the bitterness. At least you're feeling something. At least your heart is alive. So you're feeling the merirus.
Right.
You know? Yeah, because, you know, merirus at least could be filled with joy. But people who are depressed, they don't feel no mriras nor joy. They don't feel anything, they numb. Okay, so let's go into.
So what we're going to do now is I'm going to just read and translate with minimal explanation. We don't have that much time. We might have to run a little bit over just because we did so much, just trying to catch up. Okay. And you'll excuse my Hebrew, it's not that great, but some of you will be able to relate more to those who, to my Hebrew than to people who are really fluent. ומעתה יש להבין איך שיש בכל אחד מגימול חלקי השכל חב"ד הנ"ל. Let me just, if you can just mute yourselves so that we don't have things coming through. Okay, so now we need to understand how they, with each one of these three parts of the seichel of Chabad, yesh gimel bechinas. There are three aspects. Shehu bechinas omek v'orech v'rochav. There's the aspect of omek, which is depth, orech, which is length, and rochav, which is width. So these are the three dimensions of space: length, depth, and width. Ki hine bechinas omek. So now he's going to spend this whole paragraph just talking about omek. Hine bechinas omek eno mohut klal. So the aspect of omek, or depth, is not a mahut. It's not an actual entity. Mahus. Mahus from mahu, what is it? Rak shehu bechinas hitchabrut mimahut lemahut. Rather, it is only the connection between one mahut, one entity, and another entity. Ube'etzem hu bechinas ayin. And in essence, it is an ayin, which in this case means that it's not a tangible entity. It's not a yesh. It's something that exists and doesn't exist in some way. So we'll try and understand it. Kmo keren, like a corner, shemechaber shtei hadafot, which joins two walls. So when you have two walls coming together, it forms a corner. The mizrach v'darom, the eastern wall and the southern wall. Shekol ma sheyitziru eze mohut shayach ledofen mizrach or ledofen darom. So however you conceive it, any point is going to be either on the southern wall or the eastern wall. Rak bechinas ha'ayin hu mechabram v'hu hanikra keren. And there's this aspect of the ayin which joins these two walls, and it's called a corner. So if you have to point to any place, you either have to point to a place like an existence, a mahut, on one of the walls. So what is the corner? It's an ayin. If you take away the two walls, there's nothing there. But when you join the two walls together, suddenly you have this ayin, which is the corner. Another example. V'chein ben hashmashot hu bechinas ha'ayin h'machaber laila v'yom. And similarly, ben hashmashot, which is like twilight or dusk, which is, it's the aspect of ayin that joins night to day. Shehu eno mahut zmani klal. And it's not an aspect of time at all. Okay, because either kikol ma sheyochlu letzier eze zman shayach leyom or lelayla. Because however you conceive it, the time that you can point to is either going to be part of the day or part of the night. So what is this in between time of dusk, it's an ayin. Okay, another example. And similarly, al derech zeh, b'mashal rochni yoter, a more spiritual example or mashal, mirav hamashpia sechel letalmid, a teacher who's a mashpia giving over a teaching to a pupil. Okay, let me just move it here. Shemochrach liot b'mashpia b'chinas ayin. There has to be an ayin in the mashpia. The mashpia has to create an ayin within himself. What does that mean? Shehu hanachat atzmioto or sichlo haruchni hamavio lehitlabshut v'sechel shelefi erech kli hamakabel. So what is the ayin of the mashpia? He has to set aside hanachat, the light of his spiritual seichel, in order to give over the seichel and enclose it in such a way that it can be received by the vessel of the makabel. So the mashpia has to take this huge knowledge that he has, and he has to make it tzimtzum. He has to do what they would use the word hanachat, to explain it in a way that the mashpia the makabel can receive it. So he has to, the way that I like to say it is, you have to measure the light for the vessel. Okay. And similarly, v'chein b'makabel mukhrach liot bitul v'shimamon b'sichlo hamagusham. And similarly, in the makabel, there needs to be an ayin, which is bitul v'shimamon. Bitul, we say that we don't like to translate it because there's no word for it. Shimamon is like like creating an emptiness, create an empty space like a desert in his coarse seichel, shehaya lo ad hena, that he had until now. So the makabel needs to also have an ayin. He needs to put aside the coarseness of his understanding of this matter that he had until now, in order to receive something new. You know, if a cup is full, you can't pour water into it. So the makabel has to empty himself in a way that he can receive something from the mashpia. Oh, so here he says, "B'chdei sheyochal lekabel seichel hamashpia." In order for him to receive the teaching from the mashpia. Ukamamar kol talmid she'en shifsosav notfos mar. And so this is a quote from the Talmud using a quote from Shir HaShirim. And in Shir HaShirim, it speaks about lips that are dripping with more. And the Talmud takes it and says, Kol Talmid, every student that does not have his lips dripping with mar, with bitterness, is not a student. And this is what Mila was talking about earlier, that the student, this is the bitul and the shimamon of the student, is that there's a great desire and lack to learn, to receive something. And this is the aspect of the ayin of the makabel. Shehu hashiflot shebo, which is, shiflot is also difficult to translate, but it's more like humility, like a lowliness, that the makabel is putting themselves down relative to the mashpia. וכל מה שהוא בבחינת ביטול ושפלות ביותר, and the more the makabel has bitul and shiflot, yote yitrachev sichlo, makabel shefer min hamashpia. The more his seichel, his mind will be broad, wider to receive the shefer, the flow from the mashpia. Zeu ikar ha-omek. And this is the essence of what we've described here is the essence of Omek, of the depth. Shehu bechinas ha'ayin shel ha'makabel. The most important thing is the ayin of the receiver, of the makabel. Shimizen nishlam kavanat ha'shefer b'shlemut. Because with this is completed the intention of the shefer, the flow of information. It's fully realized. Ki kol ikar kavanat hashefer hu shiyitkabel b'makabel. V'al yedei ha'omek niklat hashefer b'chitro b'kli ha'makabel. And, okay. Because the whole intention of the shefer is that it should be received by the makabel. And the best way for the makabel to receive this shefer is through the omek. Because when it's received through an omek, which is a true ayin, the more it will be niklat, which means to be absorbed in the vessel of the makabel. V'lachen inyan ha'omek v'loshen ha'kodesh, and therefore the idea of the omek in Hebrew is called halal rekan haolech lemata mata. It's an empty space that goes down, like it's an endless space. So I was asking Mila a couple of questions about this. I'll share with you just one or two insights that I had really on the pshat of it. And then Mila can take it a little bit deeper. So we see that he brings 3 mashalim. And really, what is he trying to tell us? He's trying to describe something that we're not even sure what. It's an ayin. So the first mashal is with the 2 walls. So it really shows us in a very physical way how an ayin is something that exists and doesn't exist. It only exists when 2 things meet. And this is what we're going to see later, if you remember. Whenever there's a meeting, there's an omek. When it's between Chochmah and Bina, there's an omek. When it's between Chochmah and that which is higher than Chochmah, there's an omek. When you're transitioning from one level of consciousness to a completely different level of consciousness, you need to go through this kind of gateway of this ayin, this place of something that exists and doesn't exist. And it's hard to describe. So then he talks about it in terms of time. And I was saying to Mila, like, it made me think about that period of time on Shabbat, just as when we're supposed to eat Suda Shlishi. That's called the Reisen der Reisen, like it's the highest part of Shabbat. It's like there's an opening space there. That's the time when it's Shabbat is, then you're moving out of Shabbat, and yet it's still Shabbat. And it seems that in those transitionary moments, there's like a doorway that opens, that you can access a higher reality almost, something that is greater than either one of those two realities. And that's that space of ayin. That's how I understand it. When it comes to the mashpia and makabel, so I want you to, this is much more practical. Well, we can do a quick thought experiment, like a meditation, just to connect to what he's saying about the ayin of the mashpia and the ayin of the makabel. So I want you to close your eyes and just imagine that either like an 8-year-old child or a grandchild comes to you and asks you a question, or it could be, you can find a similar situation. It doesn't have to be exactly what I'm saying. It could also be somebody who's a new Baal Tshuva, and they come and say to you, they really want to know, what is Shabbat? And now you have to answer in 1 or 2 sentences, not in an hour. Take everything that you know and try and explain to them what is Shabbat without diminishing it, and giving it to them in a way that will be true, will capture the essence of it, and will inspire them to want to keep Shabbat. And just feel that feeling of all of your 20, 30 years of experience of Shabbat, and now how you're going to tzimtzum it. And just sit for a moment and think about that, or a similar experience that you've had. Okay, so you should have had some kind of experience of what it feels like to have to be mashpia, to take all of your knowledge and try and, like put the light into the vessel. I'm going to give you another example now, and this is almost the opposite. This is to try and get a sense of a makabel, almost the opposite of what Mila was talking about, a makabel who has not created an ayin. And I'll just give you an example from my life, and you'll find something similar. I had an encounter with a young adult, like in her early 20s, who came out of university with a lot of feminist ideas. And she came to challenge me with the idea that she says, prove to me that Judaism does not denigrate women, or rather she just said women, Judaism denigrates women. And now just close your eyes and think of a situation like this, where you're really encountering somebody who is not open to hearing what you're saying, and they're just asking questions to prove their point, not open to hearing something. And very often we get involved in the conversation thinking that they are interested, but really they're not. and after a while you figure that out. So if you can think of a similar situation that you might have encountered. That whatever you say, they come up with another counter argument. And just feel what that feels like as the mashpia to, when somebody is not open to receiving. Well, how does that feel? Okay, so if anybody would like to just give some feedback on either one of those.
I would.
Okay, Nechama.
So this has happened to me many times, and my position is I wouldn't even bother debating because the person doesn't want to know. They want to prove the point. What I would do is find something in that context that we agree on.
Okay, so now the point of the exercise, I want to just see for you, like, what is that feeling when somebody is blocked? Because here, what we're trying to illustrate is when there's bitul or no bitul on the part of the
So it's extremely frustrating, and it's hopeless. It's like this. It's if you want to bring peace in the world, which a lot of people are thinking about now, you don't want to start another war between two people. So because of my experience in that realm, I try not to engage on if the other person's terms are to prove that they're right. Like right. I know somebody in my community who likes to tell everybody who to vote for.
Right.
And to shame them into, that's not. So yeah, it's very frustrating, and maybe it's bittul on my part that I don't have to. I'm stepping aside. I don't have to prove I'm right. I want to join. If I do, I want to join on some level with that other person.
Okay, good. So thanks, Nechama. Can somebody speak about the other one? Oh, Yoni, you want to say something? Okay.
I was just going to say about that same one is that I feel blocked, like in my throat, like a physical blockage. And I also feel like I've lost all my knowledge, like anything that I would have wanted to say, it's like not there anymore.
Wow. That's exactly.
It's so interesting you mentioning this, Yoni. I have it all the time. That's exactly my reaction when the makabel is so full of themselves. I just can't say anything, because when we say it's actually an energy going out of us and enters the other person, right? And if the other person is so full of themselves, they don't create that space, and therefore we can't even just say anything. Like there is no space to speak into. You know, it's like, and you're like, and then you just feel like, okay, there's nothing to say. And I all the time with my
say
kids,
my
I
comment?
actually, sure.
My comment is that it feels like it's a certain four-letter word that has to do with the an aspect of the digestive process, and I'm not going to say the word, but that's the way it feels. Excuse me. It's horrible.
Okay,
I'm not sure
can I
if I
speak?
guessed it,
Can
What?
I say
but I'll
something?
think about it. So
Esther,
Can I
It's a
say
horrible,
yeah,
it's a
Esther,
horrible
go.
feeling.
Esther, go for it. Yes, Esther.
Yeah, also, I think everybody, majority of people, I think, go through this. But there is something also that that sometimes a person is closed, but it's closed also in the outside. And sometimes they hear, no, it's they understand afterwards what you said. Did you have this experience? They don't, it's the ego, no, they cannot accept at that moment, but they hear. And then sometimes in the next moment, they can say what you said, you know, in another situation.
Right,
you
right.
know, it's like very puzzling, you know, like this. It happens. It does happen
Right.
like this.
Well, one of the things that it is actually done by the Rebbeim, and we will see as long as we go deeper into the text, is very interesting thing, is that they will allow us, and this is done in all the Ma'amarim. Any piece of Chassidus has that element, and I call it an element of confusion. Right? For example, you start the mimer, you start any piece of information, you feel that it's information, but truly it's not. And you start learning a Hasidic discourse or sicha, whatever that may be. And you start like learning. And all of a sudden, there's always will be a moment where you feel confused. I've never studied any mimer where I felt from the beginning till the end and things made sense. And the Rebbeim do it specifically all the time. There's every single mimer has a point of confusion there, whether something doesn't make sense or like what's the connection with this to this, like why the Rebbe is saying this to me, like it doesn't really connect between what, you know, the logical thoughts that were before. And these points of I call it an element of confusion, is to create an ayin within us, because no matter how bittul we might think we are, but our brain likes to put things in a nice, beautiful, like shelf. Like it likes to organize things. Yeah, and this is what our brain is busy all the time. And that's why sometimes we need to go to sleep, right? So it's actually, you know, reevaluate all the events that happen throughout the day in our conscious brain and organizes things and puts them in the right folders. And when people sleep deprived, they very much often feel a sense of confusion because the brain didn't have a chance yet to organize everything. And, you know, you're awake again and you're gathering more information and you're gathering more information, et cetera, et cetera. So sleep is very important. And when you study that mimer, the brain automatically will start organizing it based on what? Based on past experiences, right? That's very natural. So there is an element of confusion in every Hasidic text in order to confuse the brain. For what? So we all of a sudden start understanding that we do not understand. That there is something that is not organized in our brain the way it should have been organized. And that creates that openness in us, like, oh, let me look deeper into it. And the Rebbe says, yes, that's exactly what I wanted you to do. You know, because if you would continue synchronizing your brain with this text, you would only have this shallow understanding of whatever else the Rebbe wanted to say. But the Rebbe wants us to be elevated into a higher level of process, higher level of consciousness. And for that, we need to let go of how we understood things up until now. And therefore, the element of confusion is so essential. Because if we hold on to our own ways of understanding, then we can't really, do anything. And this sukkah is, I actually had like this, like epiphany, this realization. I started doing Hoshanas, right? And how many times in the world you're going to say the word Hoshana? Every of you look at the Hoshana, na 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 na, Hoshana, right? And you just say it. And I'm thinking like, what's the thing about this Hoshana, right? Yeah, redeem us, da 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 da, redeem us, right? And you think, so what is this redeeming? What's the redeeming is obsession about Sukkot, right? Especially the Hoshana Rabbah, forget about it. If anybody tempted to say the whole Hoshana Rabbah, you'll be like, okay, there's something about even Hoshana Rabbah, right? It's the great redemption. It's like, what is this redemption is about? And I was thinking about it. What do we say? Ana Hashem Hoshana, right? Please Hashem, redeem us now. And I don't know, for some reason, it just like was straight into my face. Is please Hashem, redeem us from the prison of our own perception. Because this is the bottom line is, the prison is how we see things. Because in reality, Rabbi said, oh, it's all Geula already. Everything is Geula, amazing, live Geula. And we find ourselves, quite far from that reality. And this, the ability to let go of Golus and this restrictive, very congealed way of thinking, and to step into a more refined and a true reality, pretty much. There is this iron in between, and this Nachshon was a great guy, right? He just stepped right in. He's like, I don't care. It's definitely going to be better than Mitzrayim. And this analogy of Nachshon stepping in, just because Moshe Rabbeinu was pointing in that direction, created this whole split of the, Yam Suf and all that great miracle that allowed us to let go Mitzrayim, which is the restrictive way. This is what restriction is. Even if they're holy.
Okay.
Cody?
I'd like
Yes.
to ask you, could we, this idea, what you're saying is fantastic. So if we want to bring bittul into our, where we're feeling like I'm just not getting it, or I'm not connecting properly, just by creating a form of confusion, what would that look like practical?
Hashem creates the point of confusion. Tzipi, you don't need to create. I think Hashem created a lot of it.
No, but
Hashem
I'm talking when we're not feeling bittul, when we're just stuck and like, no, right now I need that. I need clarity. I need bittleness. Like what
I'll tell you what it is. Okay, Tzipi, I hear you, but I'll tell you what happened to me. I shared this with Neria the other day, and I think it's an important element. I know we're really over the time. Maybe we should conclude, and then we'll have 20 minutes for bringing if anybody is open to that. But what happened to me is very interesting. Is I had a beautiful Tishrei. At least that's what I thought. I really felt elevated. I was a different person, on many levels, and the way I related with my family and, with my spouse and everything else that was around me. I felt like, oh, amazing, great. So comes Simchas Torah, and everybody knows what happens on Simchas Torah in 770. Okay, there's a lot of people. And, I, told my girls where I will be, and and I went extra early, and here we go. I'm standing in my favorite spot for the Rebbe's Farbrengen, all the way after the whole Simchas Torah. And this is a conclusive. No, that actually was already Shabbos Bereshis, because of the Shabbos, the Farbrengen was pushed to Shabbos Bereshis. And I, was a good girl. I got up extra early. I said the whole Tehillim before that, but it was amazing. Like, wow, Mila, you go. And here we comes the moment. It was the Rebbe's Farbrengen. This is the culmination of everything, and then the world starts. on Sunday. I'm standing here in pretty much seemingly an empty spot. It was actually in the middle of the hallway between the two benches. And 5 minutes later, this Israeli girl comes in and says, "Zeh hamakom sheli." This is my place. And I'm like, no, it's not. I was like, I haven't seen you. You were not there. And I went a little bit philosophical. I said, I couldn't have taken your spot if you would be here, right? Like, we live in Gashmias yet. And she's like, no, the makom sheli. And then she starts like, arguing with me. And no, we here, la, la, la. And she gives me this whole speech that they paid so much money to come for the Rebbe. And now it's going to ruin the whole thing. And I said, listen, we could share. I mean, I said to her, wait for another half hour. You'll be surprised how another 50 people will fit into the space. I'm like, it's okay. And then she's like, no. And then she, puts her foot in a way that it's uncomfortable for me to stand. Whatever, not a nice story. And at that moment, I just felt how my whole beautiful Tishrei experience that was supposed to culminate were coming to this exceptionally uncomfortable situation where I feel like I don't even want to be here. Like, let me just go home. Like, I don't want to argue about the space. This is like so pathetic. Like, why are we even doing this? And at the same time, the part of me was saying like, Mila, no, you worked so hard. Like, this is going to be the Rebbe's Farbrengen with all the Nigunim. Aren't you going to enjoy it? And the other part is like, no, I'm not going to enjoy it because I'm not in my elevated mood anymore. Like, I'm just not there. Just literally not there. My whole emotions are just like, as I felt like this girl was just like holding this needle that popped this whole beautiful balloon that I was in. And I'm not there. How long it will take me to pop that balloon again? Basically I had no hispailos. And I'm like thinking to myself, should I go? Shouldn't I go? At that moment, my little girl felt that energy. It's like, Mom, can we please go outside? Can we please go outside? And I was like, no, we came here especially for the Rebbe's Farbrengen. You have to. And I'm like, I'm not going to pump her in. If I'm not pumped, what are we going to do? Right? And interestingly, my hashgacha pratis, on the way to that spot, I was going through a few bookshelves, and I spotted Shara Yichud. Okay? And this is one copy in Ezras Nashim that's being shared among, I don't know how many people study Shara Yichud. There's only one copy. And I was like, oh, this is such hashgacha pratis. I haven't seen you guys for a very long time. And because it was Shabbos, I did not bring anything from my home. And I picked it up and I went to that place. And when I realized I was in this devastated situation, to stay, not to stay, right? To be or not to be, all of a sudden I realized I'm holding the Shara Yichud there in my hands. And I was like, okay, I don't know what it is. I want to stay because this is the right thing to do. And I'm just going to study. That's all. So I was thinking, where should I study? Which chapter should I open? Ta-da-da. So I decided I'm going to start from chapter 10. Because from chapter 10, the Rabbi actually goes into what should one be mizboinen on, meaning the content of hizboinenus, not the way how the hizboinenus should be done, but the actual hizboinenus. And I said, okay, that would be nice. Let me just study it. I don't know how I had brain space to even read it, but Baruch Hashem, Hashem gave me some strength apparently. And interestingly, as I was going, just reading and translating, just reading and, trying to understand. Then, like I would say like about 20 minutes into this whole thing, while we all are waiting when the mincha is going to start and so on and so forth. And, I take off my eyes from the text, I look around, and lo and behold, I'm in my high spirits. I'm like, oh, that's very interesting. I actually want to stay here. What just happened was really phenomenal. I really wanted to share this with you. This was Avodah Samaychin, basically. Okay, Avodah Samaychin, where I did not need to deal with my midas. Up until now, I was dealing with a midah, her midah of feeling frustrated, and I validated her. I really don't know how these girls are doing it. They're coming 6 o'clock in the morning, they hold on to the spaces. I don't even know how they divide the spaces. Baruch Hashem, we had like over 400 girls there, maybe even more. And on that level, it takes a very, very long time to transform an emotion, a negative emotion. Usually for me, it will take me a couple of days, at least. I have to process that venom that was just injected into me, right? My body needs to process it. It's, this energy, this negative energy in the middle of 770. And what Avodah Samoichin does, it completely removes you from dealing directly with it. It takes you to a place where these things didn't even occur in the first place. Right? What I mean by it, that in creation, and that's exactly what I was studying, it is what the Rebbe talks about, the 3 levels of creation is Yachid, when yet Hashem is all by himself, he is not even thinking about creating anything. He's just enjoying himself, and it's the level called Shashui Melech B'Kadmusi, right? That's he all by himself. And then there's a level of Echad, where Hashem has a thought, Ana Emlach, it's a good idea to create the world. And then the Echad of Kadmon, where the Hashem actually creates a system how he's going to create the world with 10 spheres and blah, 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 and everything else what we see right now. And then he does Tzimtzum, right? Then there's a first Tzimtzum. And this is exactly what we were talking about. And when I realized that it was such Hashgacha Pratis that I specifically opened that chapter, and what ends up happening, and this could happen in any chapter, in any book of Shari Yechud, even not Shari Yechud, it could be, it's the way of learning. It's when you completely immerse in the concept. And when you come out, whatever happened didn't exist anymore because it renews you. You understand? I literally came out of this interaction with the text into my reality, and my girl was content. And that girl apparently was totally fine with me taking that spot. And I even moved a little bit for her to make a space for her as well, where she had plenty of space for all her friends. And we had a beautiful Farbrengen. And for me, it was like, wow, was amazing. All what I need to do is to let go of my current reality and immerse myself into something holy as whatever text I was learning. That's it. And when I came out, the reality adapted itself based on whatever else I was doing. So yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Well, that's fantastic, really.
You
I
have a good
I feel
friend.
these experiences happen to you to create wonderful example paradigms for your class.
Okay, good, beautiful. I feel like Frankel, you know Frankel?
Rebbe,
Yeah, everything has meaning. What?
I know Frankel. The amazing part is that he contributed his salvation from concentration camps.
Right.
Because he would think that when he is going to come out, what is he going to teach his students based on his experiences and what really helped him to come out and go over the challenges that he was going over in the concentration camps. And I'm thinking to myself, you got to be so motivated to live, to have such thoughts. Like,
Mila, you heard that he thought that? I never heard that.
Yeah. He said that he would be in the concentration
that's in
camps.
his book.
He wrote it in his book. He said,
I would encountering that. Okay, fine. If you say so.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. No, like he would think, what would he teach his students?
He was thinking about his wife if she'd be alive, a different thing. I don't remember this, but that's very beautiful. Mila, I just wanted to say, or whoever, there's a word that I encountered in the Lubavitch International that came this Tishrei, and it's such a good word, liminal spaces. And I have it open I'm looking it up, and it says like it's an empty.
What does liminal means?
So liminal is kind of like a doorway threshold, a threshold between two places. It's not this one and it's not the other one. So like
liminal space. I see.
Like it's an empty. So in internet aesthetics, they're writing here, I looked it up as an aesthetic. It's an empty or abandoned place that appears eerie or forlorn and often surreal. It's a commonly placed, they're places of transition.
Relating to a transitional or initial stages of a process. That's what.
and like an empty space, and it's not here nor there. And they give examples. It can be a doorway, or it can be adolescence, it can be any in-between place, and it's often unsettling, but there has a surrealness, or that kind of discomfort, like something of nishtahin and nishtaher. Interesting, no?
Yeah, and that's what so it's so interesting. You said, you said nishta here, nishta da, nishta here, right? I feel that sometimes, and every time when I find myself in that state of confusion, I was like, oh, probably something greater is coming from. Yeah, that's actually one of the things that I learned in vibrational theory, is that the vibration of fear or anxiety is very similar to the vibration. It's the same vibration of excitement. So whenever a person feels fearful, they could actually very easily transform it in them into anticipation of something greater that's emerging. And interestingly, whenever something awesome takes place, we naturally want to fear, because it's something greater than who we are is emerging, right? And we could actually transform it very easily into the excitement, because it's the same vibration. It's just the thought and the meaning we put into it. Our body interprets it as something that we should be fearful, because its body naturally wants to preserve self. And therefore, when something greater comes in, the natural defenses is like, oh my gosh, I'm afraid, right? But if we just open up ourselves as opposed to closing ourselves, and it's like, oh, let me experience something greater than that's coming up, and I'm open to this. So that's where this whole idea of bittul, of hineni, here I am.
What you vibrational what?
Vibrational theory. It's just whatever. It's like different. Everything is vibrating, right? So
at a frequency.
Depending on, yeah, exactly, at a frequency, and whatever frequency you hook up to.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Very lovely.
Yeah.
So Mila, just to bring it back, tie it all back up to the concept of Omek and Ayin.
Yeah, well, that's what the Omek is this, and he brings the 3 mashalim. The part of the hisbonenus is actually to dwell on these mashalim. This is very important. And one of the things, one of the participants actually asked a beautiful question, is that this class seems to be more intellectual as opposed to hardy. And I know Tzipi Geyer wanted to share something. And now, it's intellectual. We need intellect, because intellect, that's what allows us to pass through our own limitations, to grasp. That's what it is. It's a head, and then there's a heart, right? So what's the head? The head allows us to connect to our koach hamaskil that receives from higher than koach hamaskil, right? So that's how information, energy, godliness pretty much enters into us, and then we process it, and then it shines through our heart. So in order for us to open our heart, right, we also need to do something which is called hisbonenus. Hisbonenus is this contemplation, and it's not just learning. Then it's going to be very dry. Then you become a misnagid, right? No, we want to become chassidim. Chassidim introduced a process of hisbonenus, and through this process of hisbonenus, what we first start feeling the chayus of that what we learn, and then we feel the godliness of that what we learn, and that's where the heart awakens. And now connecting this, all back to the Omek and to the state of Ayin, is really being open to the state of Ayin. That's okay that we feel confused. That's okay that we feel fearful when we want to embark onto something big and something new. But we could change this vibration of fear into an excitement. It's like, oh, Hashem, show me how this is exciting. And Hashem always responds. And doing the hisbonenus in the 3 mashalim is essential. Why? Because mashalim are there. They are the ones that possess the light. They are the ones that the Rebbe enclosed the whole formula of understanding and beyond understanding, right?
So, Mila, can we
Yes.
just do, for the last 5 minutes, can we just do an exercise?
Yeah.
of that?
Which one?
And then we'll be done. I just invite everybody to close your eyes and to just think about these 3 mashalim for 5 minutes. I'll time you, and I'm going to stop the recording, and whoever's listening to the recording, you should do this too. Oh,